Okay, choices. What do I want to do? Black and purple. Black and pink. One of my favorites. And some spalted natural colors. Ooh, that's not bad. What else we got down here? Got some green. Oh, the choices. We'll figure it out. So it's decided. So I've got this piece that I've already cut a slot into. And this is some black stabilized maple burl. That's going to be the bolster. And then we're going to put a little thin piece of copper. And then I've got this white resin that has like a little pearlescent design in it. And I'm going to cut this down a little thinner, a little bit too thick. Right there. And then we're going to pop in another piece of copper. And then, that's right, a nice bright. This is actually reddish. I mean, it's definitely pink, but it's a darker pink, so I don't know. I like bright pink and black together for sure. Some people don't, but here we go. This is the setup right here. So it's time to start getting these pieces fit up, glued, shaped, all that crap. Okay, I've got all my pieces marked, and what I've got to do is basically drill some holes into this back end of the handle. I have to drill a hole in the middle to this depth right here, and then I have to drill the hole in the back of the bolster piece, and then I have to do some slotting on the copper and the other piece, the other thing, whatever that is. And then what I'm also going to do is square up everything, so when I attach it all together, it's perfectly straight and not a banana. So first thing I'm going to do is get this centered on my jig. So I have everything drilling in at a nice straight line. This is another, this jig right here is another video that I did. So if you're interested, I will leave a link for it. That popped right on there. And then with this, I basically just need to drill it until I hit that slot on the other end. And this will make a nice straight hole. And then I'll have to use my broach to slide out this, to slot out this hole, because the hole won't be wide enough. There we go. It feels like I hit that on the other side. Maybe. Clean this out just to make sure. Yep. So that's connected from the back side to the slot. Like I was saying, I just need to broach this out a little bit so that tang slides through here. I could have just drilled a hole that was wide enough, but I like to leave as much handle material as I can. So that part's done. Set that over by the mill for the next step. And then we need to switch this over to center it on my little pilot here. And that's pretty close. So lock this jig down, and then put that up just a little bit. And then I need to put a stop for the depth. So we want to go down to about there. Adjust my stop on my drill press, and that's where we want to go. So I need to put my center mark. All right, I got to do a little bit of adjusting here because this just isn't quite right. Got to lower this a little bit. There we go. That should be good. And then I'm going to have to adjust this fella again. Okay, got this all adjusted. I need to make sure I got my depth set again. Should be good there. Now let's try this again. Get that on my center mark, and this should be perfect right here. That's centered. Yep, good to go. All right, now we just need to drill this down to the stop. And then this will also have to be broached out just a little bit to get the width of the tang. There we go. We've got that from the center here to the center mark there. And it's a little offset because I want more of this material with all this figure. So I kind of offset it up that direction. So my next step is wanting to get all these squared up. So when I put them together, I don't have a banana. And no, I'm not a machinist. No, I'm not looking for machinist tolerances. I just want to get everything straight. But I do need to make a mark on here so I know my edge that I'm referencing. So we'll say that's the side that I'm referencing on that, and this is going to be the side I'm referencing on this one. So let's get the top squared up here. Like I said, I'm not a machinist, and I know somebody who's a machinist might be watching, and I get it, but I don't care. I mean, I care, but I don't care. My tolerances don't have to be super tight. All right, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to touch off and then make a couple passes till I'm nice and straight. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Close there. I'm going to lock that down. There we go. Speed this up a hair. As you can see, it's not straight. There we go, that should be good. And what I typically do when I'm working with wood is I like this to rotate going onto the edge, but not rotating off the edge because it'll tend to chip out the wood. So I try to get this, I'll have to make 2 passes So I'll do one side and then move it that way and then do the other side. So let me lock that down. I just don't want it to tear out the wood. Then I gotta go past the apex so it doesn't tear out wood on the other side. Past the apex, and then I can go this direction and clean that up all nice and neat. So that's all I need to do. I just need to take off a little bit, just enough to get it squared up. We're good there. And now we are nice and squared up to this edge right here. So the only other thing I need to do is flip it around and square up this side. All right, this way, and this way, like that. Then we'll have to go down just a hair. And that should, yep, should be hitting there. So just like the other side, I don't want it to tear off the edge or cut off the edge. I want it to cut onto the edge. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm gonna go past the apex of this bit and then I can come back. Just like that. Now I've got a nice flat surface for the other pieces. So I needed to change bits to square up this piece. So I figured while I've already got this in here after facing it, I'm just going to put a slot in it. And I'm just gonna do an 1/8 inch slot. And I'm basically eyeballing it because this doesn't need to be perfect. It's got to be close to center, and just make sure I get the right amount of material taken off. And I'm just doing an 1/8 inch slot. And this is thin enough I can just take it all in one shot. That should be perfect right there. Okay. So we got our little 1/8 inch slot cut out. All right, and then this is the last one, and I just figured this one would be easier to lay it down in the vise, be a little more secure than trying to stand it straight up and face cutting it. So I figured this would be a little easier way to do it. Maybe. I'm not a machinist. I have no idea. one more pass, just in case. I think that's gonna be perfect. All right, now let's get all this crap assembled. All right, I've got all the pieces fit up and ready to go. Next step is just gotta mix up some epoxy, glue these up, and then I'll be able to get the handle in there and start putting some scribe lines on there, get everything nice and straight, and then get it shaped, and we'll have a handle. This fella is all glued up, so at this point we just need to start shaping the handle. So I have a little bit different workflow with this now that I've got a mill, but this part's still the same. So I just gotta pop this back in there and just gotta start drawing some lines on here. So here we are with the trusty 1, 2, 3 blocks and the piece of granite or quartz, whatever the crap it is, and our little marking device. So my first order of business is I'm going to draw some center lines. So the first center line I want is with the thickness of the tang, and I'm just going to lower this down till I'm really close. Lock that back up, draw a line just to, yeah, so we look good there. So basically I'm just going to draw a center line all the way down here, and then on the back side okay, and then from there I'm just going to zero this out. So I do my handles 5/8 of an inch in width or thickness, and then I flare them out at 1/2 degree. So basically what I'll do is I'll go, so 1/2 of 5/8 is 5/16, and add another 1/8, and that's 7/16. So basically I need to go up 0.4375. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 7, 5, about there. And this mark is going to be where I cut my block. And then I need to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 7, 5-ish, right there. So this is my thickness to where I want to get my block actually cut before I put it on the mill. Right there. And then the other line I want to do, get this back up to my center, is I want to go up my 5/16 up this way and that way and do that line, so I know when I'm on the mill, I know where my stop points are. So when I'm taking the material down, I don't want to go past my 5/16 on each side. That way when I'm done, I'm 5/8 thickness. So I need to go up 3.03125 right there. So that's about 1/8 of an inch. And then I need to do the same thing going the other way. Okay, so I have those marks. Now, what I need to do is I need to take this down to this mark right here, and then I can do my other marks on the sides. Okay, so I've taken this down on the grinder and hit pretty close to my lines here and pretty close to my lines here. So I have a nice square block on the sides. So my next step is that I need to lay this down on my blocks here, and then I have another block on the back side to keep this perfectly straight up and down. And then I just have to go do the same thing I did for the other side and square this up. Now we've got a nice square block. So the first thing we have to do is just basically decide which side you want to work first. If you want to work the thickness or the height or the width, whatever you want to call it, on the mill. So since we've already got our 0 set up for this side, I'm just going to leave it at this. And then, like I said before, I do about 15/16 to an inch, 7/8 sometimes, just kind of depends. Thickness or width for the handle. So from here, we're just going to do an inch. So I need to go up half an inch and down half an inch. Makes it kind of easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So close to that. So make sure we're against our vertical and flat on our horizontal, and make a mark on each side, and then I'm going to make a mark on the front too and the back, so things are a little easier to see. And then from there, we need to go back to our center. Oops, which is right there. I'm actually going to make center marks too. And then down the half inch. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And then make our marks here. Okay. So from here, now we have where the bolster area of the blade, of the handle, is going to start and then taper up this way. So basically what we've done is we've cut a square oversized so that the large end of the taper is going to fit in here with no problem. So this might make more sense in the mill, so we're going to hop over there and I'll show you what's going on. All right, so here's what I've got to make this work. So I've got these angle blocks, and I'll try to remember to leave links down in there in the comments or in the description. But anyway, these angle blocks, they come in different angles from 1/4 inch or 1/4 degree, 1/2 degree, 1 degree, all the way up to like 45 degrees. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this in here, and I'm going to take the bolster side of the handle, which is the side that we want to have the narrowest part of the taper. And we're going to make it so it sits up so that it cuts an angle in which the flare is going to be in the back. So I'm going to pop this down in here and get it resting on this 1/2 inch, and then close this up nice and snug. And then you can see with our line right here, you can see that it's angled this direction. So basically what I need to do now is just, I'm going to actually scoot this back so that this glued area has a little more support. Okay. And I'm not too worried about tapping in my material because I don't need it to be that perfect. But things will stay in there just fine. So now basically all I've got to do is kick the machine on and start making passes until I've hit this mark right here, and that'll be my finishing point there, and then back here it'll be tapered so it'll be above our mark. Okay, I had to put in my facing mill, make this a little bit quicker. Alright, so let's just kind of turn this up a little bit. Also, while I'm doing this, I'm going to watch the tear out. If it becomes too much, I'm going to have to do a double pass. But sometimes it's fine. And also I taper or bevel the edges, so it'll be just fine. All right, here we go. Run this down until I touch off. Right about there. Turn this up a hair and then go down just a little bit. And we're looking good. Yeah, there's not much tear out, so we might be okay. Here. Yeah, there's a very minimal tear out. So I think I'll just be able to do everything in one pass. Okay, so you get the gist. So I'm gonna do this, and when I flip it over, I'll just show you how the other side's done. Similar, but a little different. Okay, we have that milled down to this line. So now, the only thing we really have to change for the other side is that we have to take a 1° angle block and put it down here, and then pop it in there like that. So basically what that's going to do is it compensates for this angle that we just made and then gives it the other ½ to cut the opposite side. So we just got to pop that in there and Make sure we got this all squared up. And then lock it down. And start milling again. Let's see, we'll just come up to here, then we'll touch it at where the copper is. And I think we can cut from there. Start our cuts. A little bit of tear out on the front there. Anyway, same exact thing. Just got to run this back and forth until I get to my line on the bolster area. And then I'll show you how to do the other side that we'll be clamping with the angles. All right, here we are back to laying out. So back on the 1, 2, 3 blocks, I'm going to draw my center lines. And then I want to zero this out. And then I want to be 5/8 thick on the bolster side. So I'm going to go 5/16 down on each side. Hey Siri, what's 5 divided by 16?
5 divided by 16 is 0.3125.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 5. So we're about right there. And we're just going to do it the easy way this time. And give it a little flip. Okay, and then this mark is for up here on the mill. So I'm going to come to this point and then use my 1/2 degree up this way, 1 degree on the other side, and we'll be good to go. So I'm leaving my blade in here this time because I had a little mishap. I pulled this off and I was messing with it and I snapped it right here, but I have a nice tight fit. So we're just going to leave it on here. And then once it's glued up again and I do the final shaping, which is by hand, then we'll be all right. Okay, so for this one, because I have angles going this way, the vise isn't going to clamp very well. So I made a couple little pieces of aluminum at a 1/2 degree. And this way, I can pop these in here. And it'll, maybe if I can get this in. There we go. Now I can put this in here. And it's going to clamp all nice and neat. Just have to make sure everything's squared up. Slide that back a little bit. Make sure we got our angle and everything's square. Snug that down and same process, just start cutting. Okay, just like that, back and forth, just like the same. So I'll get this done and then we'll go through the beveling process. Okay, so we've got the tapers done. Everything looks nice and straight, even, all that good stuff. So now I got to get the bevels or the chamfers or whatever you want to call them put into this blade. So I've got 2 different sized pencils that raises my pencil lead up off of the straight surface area. And what I typically do is take the small pencil and I trace a line here and here, and I trace my lines on the sides. And what this ends up giving me is really close to a 30-degree angle. So I'm a little deeper on the sides than I am on the top and bottom. So when we go back over to the mill, what I've got is a 1-degree block. So basically it's going to be pushed all the way flat with this front side. That way I can get a nice straight line here that I've drawn. And then underneath I have it clamped down at a 1-degree angle so that I can keep this at the angle that I want it. And then this also explains why I'm using this Harbor Freight vise. For one, I'm not a machinist and my tolerances don't have to be super tight. And the other reason is I can twist this to the 30 degrees that I want, lock it down, then I'm able to cut these angles that I'm after. And I typically do this without the blade in here, but because I messed up, I'm really hoping I can get to the end without hitting that blade. Yep, we'll be good. Yep, just fine. So anyway, I basically just have to do this back and forth until I get to my lines. And then I'll rotate it. I'll basically rotate it to the other side, and then to do the other 2 corners, I'll spin the blade and then put it in and rotate them. That way I can get all my angles right. Just like that. Milling is done. So my main reason for using the mill is basically just to set everything up so it's nice and straight and centered and all that stuff. And you can do that. I can do that on the grinder. It definitely works. But because I have the mill, I'm just doing that. But anyway, I will go back and do some grinding just to clean everything up. So basically with the mill, I've got all my angles set, so it makes it a lot easier to do the quick grinding. But because I broke this, I'm gonna have to glue this up before I continue. And the next step is just getting the hole in the back side of here so that I can put my nut in there for my through tang. Other than that, we're almost there. I do the final hand sanding once this is on the blade. It just makes it easier to put in a vise and hold on to. But the final hand sanding is basically, 600 to 1,000 grit. Everything else I do on the grinder. So on to the next steps. All right, stick with me. We're almost there. So I re-glued this and cleaned it up on the grinder. And it's looking pretty good. So quickly, what I'm gonna do is drill a little hole the size of this hardware, and I'm gonna drill it in just right here and then cut some slots out to put that in there, braze it in so that we have a through tang, and then it will all be held together by this copper nut in the back. So the last couple handles I've done, they've actually broken at the seams. So if you don't put something inside as you're shaping this, most likely it's going to snap and you're going to have to re-glue it. So the locating pins are great if it's something that you're going to take apart and do each piece individually and then put back together. It helps keep track of where everything goes. But in this case, I think I'm going to go back to using the dowel technique, where you actually drill a hole, a 3/8 inch hole, the length of, the majority of the tang. You don't want to drill it up into here because you want your slot. But after you drill that hole, you cut slots, or a slot the thickness of the tang, through your dowel, and then you pop it in here and then glue everything together. So basically the dowel is creating a nice slot for the tang to fit through, and then also adding extra support for all these pieces that are glued together. I'm not quite sure why I stopped doing this. I think I just wanted to try new techniques, but I think this is the way to go. It just, everything always was held together really well as I was shaping the handle. So I think I'm gonna go back to this. It actually makes things a little bit easier too. Okay, let's get some brazing done. And here's my little brazing station. Are there easier ways to do it? Most likely, but I just have this vise that I hold my my knife in, and then this vise that I hold my threaded rod in, and then all I do is I just look this direction to make sure it's straight down the tang, and I look this direction to make sure it's in line with the tang. And then once everything's set up, I just grab the oxyacetylene, which, another thing that I'm not really good at, but I'm able to do it good enough. that other side really quick, just to make sure we got a good braze. Nah, I gotta hit the other side a little bit. That's what I'm saying. I'm not great at it, but I get it done. Okay. We'll call that one good. All right, now I just got to go clean this up just a little bit and thin it down so it fits through the slot. So I'm getting my hole drilled in the butt of this handle, and I'm going to use my little jig here. So I got to get the point of the drill bit lined up with the part of the jig that I'm using. Lock it down, and that way it'll ensure me a nice straight hole from the center of the butt to the center of the bolster. So what I found is that the last few times I've done this way, I'll run into a hard spot in the material and I'll push the material, the handle one way or another, and then I won't get a centered hole, which drives me bonkers. But I'm gonna try it again, just going slow, and I'll keep an eye on this hole just to make sure. It's always better practice if you clamp things down. And then actually, now that I have the mill, I can just find my 2 different size holes that I need and then just drill it that way. But we're going this route this time. All right, let's see if we can do this. It's looking like it's staying pretty centered. So we'll keep going, keep an eye on it as we go to make sure it doesn't shift. But slow is good here. So I'm almost down to the step. I'm gonna check this again. And we're still centered on there. So it's slightly off center. I mean, a human hair off. So what I'm gonna do is the direction that it's off, I'm gonna put pressure going the other way just to keep it from shifting in that one direction anymore. Double check. And actually looking pretty good. So I'm going to continue down to my tape mark. And we are nice and centered on there. So I think we're good. And then one other thing that I like to do, because this step bit, it's made for a different company's Corby bolts. So the copper one doesn't fit into the inner hole. So I basically just need to grab a 1/4 inch and drill that center hole out to 1/4 inch. And then also it has to be connected to the tang slot in the handle anyway. There we go. All the way through. And we've got a nice tight fit right there. Okay, here's where we're at. So the hole is drilled. The tang has the threaded rod on the end. Everything's cleaned up so that it will fit inside through the slot all the way to the end. The only thing I need to do is trim the threaded rod so it goes down to the point that it needs to be for the nut to grab and then suck everything together. So from this point, I just need to work through the grits. I've got a 220 on here now, and I'm just going to work. I'm going to work everything up to 220 and then 400, and then I'm going to pop this on the knife and tighten it together, do all the hand sanding, buffing, basically finish the handle so it's done except for the butt, and get it all glued up. Once it's glued up, I'll come back, do the, clean the butt up, and then the knife's basically done except for the sharpening. So let's finish up the sanding. When I get up to 400, when I do this, I'm gonna kind of wobble it back and forth just a little bit so that these flats aren't perfectly flat, so they have a little bit of contour to them. To me, it makes it a little more comfortable while holding the knife. Make sure you check as you go, get all your sand marks out. And I'm also checking the pattern just to make sure everything's nice and square. Okay, so I've got this handle fit up onto the knife. The nut is holding everything together for now, so it hasn't been glued. And I finished 400 grit off of the belt, and I'm going to start the hand sanding at 400. And basically we're just going to go over this. I'm using my hardback for 400, and then as soon as I get to 600, I'll just use my hand. So I just want to go through here with some good light on here just to ensure that I've got all my scratches out. Everything's nice and tidy. And then also check for any flaws in the wood that I might have to fill, which there probably are going to be some in this wood just because it's burl, and that's kind of the nature of the beast when working with burls. If there's not anything, perfect. I'll be happy about that. So the reason why I'm using a hardback right now is because of this copper. It's harder than everything else, so if I'm doing it by hand, I'm going to get bumps, which, you know, not a big deal. I just don't want the bumps. Looking good. Moving to the next facet. Anyway, you get the picture. So basically I'm going to run through this till I get to probably 1,000 grit, and then I'll hit it with the buffer. So there's one quick thing I forgot to mention. Before I do the buffing, I need to take the corners off of this bolster area so it's comfortable for the user. So I use a rotary platen because I have it. If I didn't, and sometimes I've actually just taken the flat platen off and just use slack, but I use a J weight, a 400 grit J weight. Basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to go on here flat and then push, and what that is going to do is it's going to create kind of like a radiused look, a scallop look, so it'll kind of move down and across in a little radius. So it's not only does it take the corners off, but it also makes it have a nice aesthetic. Then after you make a pass, just kind of look at it and see if it's where you want it. If it's not, you just keep going until you get the look you're after. And then I'm also going to do this on the butt side of the handle after it's all glued up and I take care of the nut on the back side. And then typically what I'll do is once I'm where I want to be, I'll just kind of lightly just run around this at a nice consistent pace. And it usually scallops that up a little more so it looks better. And just like that, now it's on to buffing. Okie dokie, ready for the glue up. So here's the handle. You can see it's nice and buffed up. And it's all ready to go. So I'm going to get this all glued up, you know, get the nut on there and let it cure up. I really don't think you need to watch me do that, nor would you want to watch me do that. And then once that's all cured, I'll come back and I'll clean up the butt area of the knife and put some chamfers around this this back side here and give it one more buff, and the knife will basically be done except for the sharpening. So here's the finished knife. So with the exception of oiling up the blade and cleaning all the residue off and then treating the handle, this thing is pretty much done. So the original intent of this video was just on this Hitachi white. I really wanted to see how well it took a hamon, and I can't wait to see what kind of edge I get with this. From what I could tell with the sanding, it definitely felt really hard after the heat treat. So you can see we kept that nut pretty centered, slightly off, but I can live with it. But anyway, that is the finished product. The hamon did come out really nice. Even with all the problems that I had with the streaking and all that, I still like it. So there's another one in the books. As with every knife I do, I definitely learned a little bit doing this one. Learned how I want to keep doing the handles instead of straying away from having the dowel. I'm just going to keep doing that. It just makes things a little tighter. It just makes things a little better as far as shaping. Things don't come apart. And if I'm going to do an heirloom fit, I'll just do pins, and even the dowel in the middle for the heirloom fit will still be really, really nice, but also pins just to keep anything from twisting around. But anyway, that's it. I hope this helped somebody in any part of making this knife. And if you have any questions about this Hitachi white steel, the Shirogami, by the time I get your questions, I'll have sharpened this and used it a little bit to see how the edge holds up and what kind of polish I get from it. But yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, leave a comment. I'll get back to you. And as always, thank you for joining me on this build. See you on the next one.